Hello YouTube, it's your boy the Form Pig, back at it with my final album review by Trivium. What a week and 8 reviews has led into. This album right here, What the Dead Men Say, 2.5 years after The Sin and the Sentence. This was their first album since 2017, being the longest gap between one of their albums since the gap from Shogun to In Waves, which is I think just barely under or over 3 years. This is about 2.5 years. So, but it's not like Trivium wasn't doing anything in between the times. They gave us 5 songs, which were, they gave us 2 new covers and 3 new originals, right? No, wait. Yeah, okay, well, 2 originals, 2 covers, and then a remaster. So they gave us first Pillars of Serpents 2019, which was amazing. Then they gave us I Don't Want to Be Me, an amazing cover. Then they gave us Drowning in the Sound, which was perfection. And I really wish it was on this album, or at least this in the sentence. And then they gave us their cover of Kill the Poor, which is terrible, one of the worst things Trivium has ever done. And then they gave us that one Portuguese song, which was somehow even worse, and one of the absolute, if not the worst track that Trivium has ever made. So they started off really strong, and then they kind of declined, which got me a little nervous for this album. So what do I think of this album? I think it's a pretty good album. If I'm being honest, I'm extremely underwhelmed by this album, purely because of the wait in between the albums. It's inevitably going to live in the shadow of The Sin and the Sentence, this album right here, because that album was an absolute, as I said, a modern day masterpiece. So inevitably it's going to live in the shadow. Can it really do what The Sin and the Sentence did? Even if I do my best to not compare albums, I can't help but compare them here. I really do feel a lot of the elements from a lot of the other albums here, except Vengeance Falls, I would say here elements of In Waves, Silence and Snow, Sin and the Sentence, a little bit of this album's own signature sound tossed in, but I don't hear anything from Vengeance Falls. Really, it really does blend that. My main issue, as I said, is the wait for this album. It seriously sounds like they could have made this album and released it in 2018, which was a year after The Sin and the Sentence. Waiting 2.5 years for this, I know that's not a really long time, but 2.5 years for me, I've been through a lot in 2.5 years, man. The shit I've gone through in 2.5 years. I remember peacefully going to bed when The Sin and the Sentence came out, thinking, man, I can't wait for the next album, and now we're stuck in quarantine because of a goddamn virus. A lot has changed in 2.5 years. I wish there was more tracks here. There's only really 9 tracks here because the opening isn't really much of a song, and they released the entire first part of this album in singles, which in my opinion was a really bad choice. They gave us half the album already. Although, to be fair, when I first heard this album, it was before their release Bleed Into Me, because if you saw in my other reviews, I said that I got this album early and listened to it early. So this wasn't my first listen through, because I wanted to make sure that this wasn't my first listen through, because that will normally probably be a review that I'd regret making, like The Great War. That was one of my worst, easily probably my worst review I've done. I want to go back and revisit that album, just because I need to give it the score it deserves, which is much higher than I gave it. But as I said, out of the 9 songs, only 2/3 of them are really good. Unfortunately, just one of the elements it took from Silence in the Snow is being really boring at times. I don't know why, but a lot of the songs don't pack a punch or make me feel anything. Some songs definitely do. And the high points are really high, but the low points, much like Silence in the Snow, are dull and unimaginative. I feel like Drowning in the Sound, as I said, really should have been here. And as I said, I'm underwhelmed and disappointed, but this isn't a bad album by any means. Is it album of the year? Hell no. All the albums I've heard up to this point, just off the top of my head, were 3 by Demons and Wizards, Truth and Sacrifice by Heaven Shall Burn, were miles better than this album. But as I said, there's FA2, which I heard, which if you've seen that review, you should know that this is that's definitely not better than this album. But I think it's kind of a midpoint in their discography. I think it's better than 3 of their albums, but I think it's worse than 5 of their albums, which tomorrow I'll do a ranking of all the Trivium albums, much like I did with the Sabaton one, which will include this. This album is just kind of there, really. As I said, its high points are really good. Just remind me of some semblance of Sin and the Sentence, and In Waves especially. This takes a lot of elements from those 2, but unfortunately it takes too much from the boring elements of Silence in the Snow. So let's get into track by track, starting with track number 1, IX, or Roman numeral 9, because this is their 9th album, so obviously Roman numeral 9, I'm calling it 9. So it's a really good, solid, short introduction to this album. It's a little long for my liking, but it's basically just a brief instrumental of the next track, which is basically what Capsizing the Seas did. It's pretty good. They released it in the music video for track number 2, What the Dead Men Say, which is hell yes, the second single they released here, and it took a while, but it eventually grew on me. I wasn't the biggest fan the first few listens through. Once I listened to it, I was like, oh, this is good. I love the lyrics, and the last chorus is really great. I honestly wish they had released this before Catastrophist, because that would have been like the big triumphant comeback like Sin and the Sentence, even though I don't think this is as good as that song. I don't think it's as good as that song, yeah. The midsection is kind of boring, which is an issue that a lot of songs on this album have. And even though this is definitely one of the better songs on the album. So, track number 3, Catastrophist, which I'm 99% sure is a made-up word, which is a pretty solid song. It gets better as it goes along. I'm not a fan of the main riff in the first verse, really got me scared at first. I was like, oh, fuck me, they're going back to pop metal. I thought they learned after the second sentence, but it does get a lot better. The verses are dull and uninspired, as I said, but the pre-chorus and the chorus really kick in. It does feel like an awkward transition here, which is one of the few, if not the only time they really have the awkward transition, but it's worth it, especially the chorus, just you're a catastrophe, the one who's come to bring all something. I forgot how the lyrics go, but yeah, I didn't really listen to the song as much as I listened to the sin, or What the Dead Men Say in Amongst the Shadows and the Stone, because it's the longest track here, and I feel like listening to this song as a whole is kind of a big feat to take on. Feat. But it's overall a pretty solid song. I'm not a fan of the opening riff, but I do really love the choruses, especially, are really powerful moments. It's like a power metal song. The chorus is where it's at its absolute peak, and I do like the midsection, how it gets a little heavier. It's definitely not as dull as some of the other ones here. So let's go to track number 4, Amongst the Shadows and the Stones. Now this is how you make a goddamn Trivium song. Matt has said that this is his favorite song here, and I can see why. Speaking of which, that reminds me, Matt said that this is their best album. Have you heard In Waves, Ascendancy, Shogun, what this in the sentence, even Ember to Inferno? This is not their best album, definitely. But as he said this is his favorite song, and I see that. It's got a blend of definitely reminds me a lot of Chaos Reigns. I get a massive In Waves vibe here, especially. We all know how much I love that album. Definitely the best single they released, and the intro is just a brutal and intense way to introduce the song, especially with the lyrics, just bloodied corpses, broken bones reveal, like, dang, Trivium. Okay, it's just nonstop energy and heaviness. I wish the rest of the album was more like this song, because it could be their best album if it was. The only part that's not perfect is the second solo section, because it feels like a massive change out of nowhere, but the recovery from it after the next verse, and just that note that Matt hits in that next verse, like, I forgot how it goes, but it was just the apart from that last chorus leading into that pre-chorus, that note Matt hits is just, whoo. So let's get to track number 5, Bleed Into Me, which is, I mean, I guess it's fine enough. It's a radio ballad like Heart From Your Hate, but it doesn't do that job very well. I hated this song the first time through, and I don't hate it as much. It'll probably grow on me more. They released this single actually today, and I think it was a really bad choice to A, release a song the day before your album releases, and B, as I already said, release half the album before it's freaking out, which is, what Breaking Benjamin did with Ember, which you can actually see that as an LP right there. But I thought Ember was definitely a much overall better album, but I'm not going to compare the two really, because they're not particularly similar bands. But Matt's vocals here are just, they're pretty good. I like them, and I love the opening bass riff, as I said, since I'm a bass player. My main issue is that it's just so generic. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of Heart From Your Hate, it definitely at least wasn't generic. I don't hate it as much as I first did, and it'll probably grow on me more and more. And as a radio ballad, I guess it's fine. It's not nearly as good as Endless Night or even Heart From Your Hate, and I didn't really view it as one, which led to my original distaste for this one. But once you view it like that, I mean, I guess it's fine enough. I just wish it wasn't so generic. And speaking of generic songs, track number 6, The Defiant, which is, once again, it's fine enough. I like the opening riff, and the verse is pretty cool. And I like the pre-chorus, but once again, the chorus is just hella generic. Just, I stand in defiance of your ways. Just, even the lyrics, just, nothing about this song feels original or inspired. It's supposed to make me feel something like, hell yeah, defiant, let's rebel against some shit. It does not make me feel that at all. It's heavy and melodic and in typical Trivium fashion. That's a tongue twister. It never feels awkward, and I feel like this song should really get me pumped, but it just doesn't. I don't know what it is. Probably because it's just so generic. I can't bring myself to really like this song and just get like, hell yeah, we're the Defiant. I can't get that feeling. But I'll admit, the last chorus is a lot less generic and more powerful. The last chorus is easily probably the best part of this song. So track number 7 now, Sickness Unto You. Now this is a good song. It's pretty much Beauty and the Sorrow Part 2, which I already said, and that's in the sentence review, but a lot heavier and more chaotic. The lyrics are a lot more on the nose here and kind of cringy at times, especially about just like, a part of me is fucking dead. It's like, it's kind of on the nose, man. You're 35 and married with kids. Come on, man. But it goes to the feeling and chaos of really losing a loved one. It's really chaotic. It perfectly captures that emotion of chaos and anger after losing a loved one. I love the intensity, and I guess the panic. The verse really makes me feel like a panic, especially the second verse, where it's like holding someone while they're dying, holding a loved one as they're like pretty much getting shot and dying. The chaos and panic, especially the panic creates, is like, whoa, that got me. It really makes me feel something. The chorus is super powerful because of Matt's voice. Just or whatever the lyrics to it. I feel like I need to do this justice. Just the I give in, I am through, my sickness unto you. It's just so powerful here purely because of Matt's vocals. It's easily one of my favorite songs, and the only real issue I have is the kind of on-the-nose lyrics. I don't think it's as good as Beauty and the Sorrow since that song came first, but it adds a lot more heaviness. I love it purely for the atmosphere it creates. It really adds a bunch of tones like panic, sadness, anger, and chaos all coming into one to create what I would describe as probably a perfect song. Could make a strong point for being my favorite song here, and it probably is. So let's get into track number 8, Scattering the Ashes, which I really like the opening riff, and it feels like something off of Silence in the Snow, albeit a much better song off Silence in the Snow. It's a song that really grows on you the more you listen to it. I'll probably really enjoy the song more as I listen to it. It's not really a standout track here because there are much better songs, such as I said, Sickness Unto You, Amongst the Shadows and the Stone, What the Dead Men Say, even Catastrophist. I always consider it one of the, quote, weaker songs here, but I don't think it's a bad one by any means. I don't like the pre-chorus really, but the chorus is still really good. It feels a lot less generic. It's a pretty solid song, definitely one of the better, as I said, weaker songs. It feels like something that would be really one of the best songs, if not the best song off Silence in the Snow, but that's because that didn't have much competition. I do think this album is better than Silence in the Snow. I'm just going to throw that out there, just so you know. I think that this is a better album than that, definitely, because it has a lot, the high points are a lot higher, really. So let's get to track number 9, Bending the Arc to Fear, which is, once again, it feels like something off of Inways, which of course means it's one of my favorite songs here. The chorus is just, I love this song name, just Bending the Arc to Fear. That's such a cool song name, and as a whole, it's just super heavy. The breakdown section is fucking kick-ass. I'm cursing in this review more than I do in all my other reviews combined, and especially that riff, just like the triplet pattern, just the da-da-dum, 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 that pattern. I really hope this song catches on because it's a song, it's so amazing. It's definitely one of my favorite tracks here. I would say probably this or Sickness Unto You would be my favorite song here. This song actually makes me feel something. It doesn't make me want to zone out. I cannot give this song enough praise, and much like Amongst the Shadows and the Stones, I wish this song had more albums. I wish this album had more songs like it. I really got that mixed up in my brain right there. So now, track number 10, The Ones We Leave Behind, which is easily their weakest album closer to date. I mean, come on. Their tracks are always, the ending tracks are always super unique and longer tracks. Let's see, Ember to Inferno. What was that song? Wait, give me a second. Why can I not remember that song name? But there was Declaration off of Ascendancy, which was amazing. The Crusade, one of the best tracks on the album, which is a relatively weak album. Shogun, an absolute masterpiece to close an album. Leaving This World Behind, and Of All These Yesterdays, masterpiece back to back. Wake to the End Is Night, one of their best and most underrated songs. Breathe in the Flames, the best track on that album. Thrown Into the Fire, the best track on that album. Wake to the End Is Nigh, Breathe Into the Flames, and Thrown Into the Fire were the best album closers. Were the album closers that were obviously the best tracks here. They normally have such amazing album closers, but this is such a terrible album closer. It's not like the song is slow, it's just dull and boring. Their album closures always feel like you've come to the end of an epic musical journey through the world of Trivium. I mean, Thrown into the Fire made me really feel like I'd come to the end of an epic album. Even though The Sin in the Sentence wasn't a concept album, I don't think it was, it felt like I'd come to the end of a journey or a story. Wake to the End Is Nigh felt like a real treasure, felt like the treasure at the end of the journey, because that album wasn't that great, but that song was amazing. Same with Breathe in the Flames. I felt like the album wasn't that great, but making it to that song and discovering it was, I feel like, just deserving, just the treasure at the end of it's about the destination, not the journey, really. This album is much more about the journey than the destination, I would say. I mean, it's heavy. It tries to be heavy and energetic, but it's just so freaking boring. And I noticed in my notes, I spelled weather really wrong. I spelled it we there. I'm really bad at spelling. There are always standout tracks, as I said, even on their worst album, but here, it's just boring. I just zoned out through it. How do you end? It doesn't feel like an ending or a conclusion or even a to be continued. It feels like if a movie stopped in the middle of its, it feels like if Endgame just went out, while they were getting the stones in the middle of that, if that movie just stopped right there and said, all right, that's the movie. That's what it feels. It's like, it's over. I mean, this album really only has, as I said, 9 tracks, and just to end on this one is such a weak decision. So now, my closing thoughts. So I can't really read what my closing thoughts say at all. So, What the Dead Men Say at times is extremely dull, boring, and unimaginative. But at its highest points, it features some of their best works, and really the highs do outweigh the lows. But the lows, you can't ignore the lows like you could on, say, an album like The Sin in the Sentence. It doesn't flow together like an album really should, but rather feels like a collection of pretty good songs, much like what I said in my Coat of Arms review for Sabaton all those months ago, almost a year ago. How I said they felt like good songs overall that didn't flow together to form an album. This one doesn't really either, purely because the closing track is easily probably the worst track here. my final score for What the Dead Men Say is an 8.1 out of 10. You'll see obviously more. If maybe it'll change tomorrow when I post my Trivium album rankings, but you can probably guess where at least most of them will lie. Probably can't tell where my top 4 are gonna lie because I gave 4 albums a 10 out of 10. So overall, What the Dead Men Say, pretty underwhelmed by this album. I don't think, as I said, it's a bad album. It's not gonna be album of the year. For the first time in a while, I actually probably don't think this won't be a Trivium album that will end up in my top 10 of the year. It probably won't. But yeah, so where does this leave my channel? I go a while without uploading. I'm gonna do my best, really. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna save time. I'll get more into it in my rankings tomorrow because that'll probably be a shorter video. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you made it through all of these 9 album reviews, much like my Sabaton ones, thank you so much. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see all you people tomorrow when I rank the Trivium albums.